Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Health Hunt, a human, humble, and humorous exploration of what it takes to really feel better. So in today's episode, we're going a little off script and under the skin, literally. It's always been our goal with this podcast to be authentically us and share different health experiences, often in real time. Today is no exception. Dan and I are about to start wearing continuous glucose monitors, also known as CGMs. Those tiny little sensors that track your blood sugar 24/7. And instead of pretending that we're fearless biohackers who totally have this figured out, I'm going to be honest. In the interest of honesty, I'm a little bit nervous. Dan's done this before, but I'm a CGM virgin. So I have questions, I have fears, and I'll be sharing all of that with you. Today, you're coming along with us. We're going to talk through why we're doing this, what we hope to learn, what freaks us, mostly me, out a little bit. And yes, we're actually going to be putting on the CGMs during this episode. This isn't a you should do this episode. It's a curiosity episode. A let's explore and see what happens episode. Because sometimes the scariest part of health experiments is the moment before you start. So let's do this together. So the first thing we want to share is, why are we doing this? Why are we going to monitor our glucose? What sparked the idea was an episode that we did, and it was episode number 4, where Dan educates us about the importance of understanding your glucose levels and various related biomarkers. And I actually got really excited because I always want to learn more about myself, and the way he described it and the apps and features that are available sounded really cool. So kind of got the idea that we should try this, and he's been wanting to do it again. So here we are. We also got a lot of feedback and interest in that episode, and others have told us that they're getting CGMs. So we kind of thought this would be a fun thing to do together.
All right. So as Sandi mentioned, we are doing a his and hers CGM showing today. We're putting them on. This is going to be very interesting. As she also mentioned, I had discussed this in a part of the glucose episode. So just to refresh, I typically run my CGMs 2 to 3 times a year. I've been doing this since 2022. Understanding how your body responds to food is incredibly powerful. And the beginning of the year is an obvious check-in point to do that, especially since my last CGM was 5 or 6 months ago. So I actually took baseline biomarkers. So I went to Quest for a bunch of other tests that were end-of-year tests, but I also got in my A1C and my fasting glucose. So prior to doing this, my A1C is 5.2, which was last time, which is very solid within the non-diabetic range. Again, your A1C is the 90-day snapshot of how your glucose is reading. And then I did my fasting glucose, which comes with the metabolic panel, which actually is included in what your doctor, your traditional doctor, will probably order to you as you go in for a PCP checkup. My fasting glucose, as I mentioned in episode 4, is high. It runs high. I run hot. It was 103 again. Typically, you want to be below 100, and really, truly, you want to be below 80. And so I'm always slightly elevated. There's a number of reasons for that, which go beyond the point of this particular episode. But I'm aware of these 2 biomarkers are the baseline for me. And so I'm excited to, put our CGMs on. I will say that Sandi and I are both using the Stello brand. The difference is that Sandi is using it in a different ecosystem with the Levels app and the Levels entity. I am using mine directly through Stello. And their native app and interface. So same technology, different user experience, and we'll cover those things as we move forward. But super excited, and here we go.
Okay, can you, Dan, give people a refresher, first of all, on what a CGM is, in case that's something they can't actually visualize, and also maybe just help us remember what the importance is of tracking your glucose and why anybody should actually care.
So a CGM is a continuous glucose monitor. Up until a couple of years ago, these things were only given to individuals by prescription, but now this industry is exploding, and you can find these monitors actually at your CVS's, your Walgreens, and you can order them online as well. A CGM specifically is a sensor that's worn on the skin that measures your glucose every few minutes. So why does this matter? Well, it turns your health into a real-time movie instead of snapshots. It shows the spikes, what we call glucose variability, from the meals that you eat, how you're dieting, the stress that you're feeling, the poor sleep that you're getting, and the exercise that you're doing. And all of these show you how your glucose responds to all of these activities and all of these things. And then you want to make tweaks based upon that. And so
I think it's important to know, like Dan said, that this used to be something by prescription meant for type 1, typically diabetics, and those with type 2 so that they could monitor their glucose. But now people are using it for all sorts of general health information, and that's how we're using it. The other thing I want to mention too is that what it's doing. So Dan had mentioned Levels and the Stello apps. So the sensor is sending information to an app, which we're getting on our phone. So that's how you're getting the data. You don't have to have it sent to your doctor, which, you could if you wanted to, but this is really like a sort of a standalone thing that you can do on your own and read the results. Okay, so now is where we get really real and really raw. I know that this little device has some sort of needle in it. So that's how it reads information from your arm. So like, I'm a little bit nervous. And again, we're going to do this in real time. So if I scream, you'll hear it, cover your ears. But the other fears that I kind of am thinking about is like, what if I screw it up and I put it on wrong? What if I knock it off? Is it going to hurt? Obviously. And that is kind of an irrational fear for me because I have a ridiculously high pain tolerance. I think in part because I simply exist in a lot of pain every day. And also, just by way of an example, years ago when I had all these issues breaking my leg and having it put back together and having pins taken out, at one point, I actually took out 40 of the staples, like all of the staples on my own, because I didn't want to have to drive back 2 hours from university to the hospital. So the doctor sent me home with a staple remover. Probably a story for another day, but that's a true story. The other things that I am concerned about is like, what if it annoys me? What if I can feel it when I'm sleeping? Am I going to lay on it? I'm someone who is super sensitive to sensations. I'm very particular about clothes or things being too close to my neck or itchy. And so, I've already had some sort of catastrophizing. I know we love that word, Dan, about if I'm going to feel it, if it's going to bother me and all of those things. And then, the next thing is kind of a lot of people, what they go through when they have any kind of testing or monitoring is, what if I learn something scary? What if this data stresses me out? And what if I found out that I've been doing everything wrong and I have to completely change everything about how I do things with my health? The last thing I'm kind of concerned about, and this is something I'm going to have to monitor, is I'm worried that the app is going to yell at me all day, that it's going to alert to all of these spikes in glucose. I'm going to feel badly about my life choices. And then it's going to make me neurotic, and we don't need more of that, about maintaining a perfect blood sugar. So I really need to find a good boundary of this just being informative and not scary and not taking over my life. And I just want to say this out loud to people. We're not using this to chase perfect numbers, to restrict food, or to turn eating into a performance review. And this is something that I want to be very cognizant about and careful about. So if at any point this feels stressful or overwhelming, I'm going to pause this experiment, at least for me. And this is really just part of listening to your body. I know that I can get overwhelmed and that can lead to more issues with chronic conditions. Again, we haven't had the deep mind-body talk yet, but that sort of plays into it. So I just really, again, have to listen to my body and my mind and keep things in check.
There's actually interesting that you say about it, if it yells at you all day. I think the CGMs that are built for non-diabetics don't have those alarms, or you can turn those off. The ones that are built or intended for diabetics, and there are different ones that are, is my understanding, have those alarms because if you're having, hyperglycemic or you're having, some type of issue with your glucose, you should know. And so
yes,
it's important to, for the insulin and stuff. So there's that. And then I would tell you that I've done this, obviously 5 or 6 times. There's no pain. Sandi, honestly, I'll be curious to see how you feel, but it really, if you do it right, it doesn't hurt, in my opinion. And actually in the beginning, you kind of know something's on your arm, and then several days later, you actually kind of forget. And that's kind of where these things work, is because you forget. And then I will say this, is that I have taken the soap in the shower on day 3 and forgotten it's on and been scrubbing, and you scrub the CGM and it shifts a little bit and you're like, whoa, did I just, mess everything up? And it stays on. Like with the equipment and the stickers they give you, it does stay on. But, obviously I'm not trying to suggest that it won't, no pain for me is not pain for someone else, but it's not as scary once you have it on as it seems once before you put it on. And so I'm telling Sandy this, and she'll have her own thoughts and ruminations about it. But I have my fingers crossed that it'll be successful. She'll be embarking on a very successful journey here with the CGMs, us together, and then reporting back to you. So excited about this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. My heart's beating a little bit, but just for reference, when I was saying that things annoy me, I'm like the princess and the pea. So if you don't know that fable, go look it up. But basically, it was like this princess, and she was on, I don't know, 75 mattresses, and they put a pea underneath to see if she was really a princess. And she woke up in the morning and she told them she could feel it. So just for context, that is me. I am the princess on top of a heap of mattresses.
If you remember, this is a totally off topic. Sandy said you took 40 staples out of your leg after a surgery. Can
I did.
Confirm?
I did,
okay.
Yes.
And you guys also remember back in a different podcast episode that Sandy it was a dentist with her father. Well, apparently Sandy is doing a lot of things. I'm not sure if she stays at Holiday Inns all the time, but she does a lot of things that maybe are, she's bright, but this is interesting. This is interesting.
It was my own leg, so I don't think it violates any rules. If I was going around removing other people's staples, that would potentially be some sort of violation, but I'm not doing that. So please don't ask me.
Fair enough, but I digress.
Well, now it's time. And so I know most of you are probably listening to this in audio, but we may actually release video both on social media and on YouTube. So I will show a few things. The one that I got through Levels comes with 2 Stello sensors, and they're each meant to be on for 15 days. So if I want to stick with it, it's a 30-day process, but it comes just in a box. I was going to do a whole unboxing thing to be like some cute influencer, and then I just decided that that's really not my jam. And it turns out there's actually a lot of YouTube videos, so it seems sort of unnecessary. So we're not going to do that. But it came in a few different boxes, and I opened up some things, and I did a little bit of prep work because I'm not good at opening things in real time. My hands don't work that well. So I didn't want to be sitting here for 20 minutes trying to open things and waste a bunch of time. So I did a little bit of legwork yesterday. I set up my Levels app. I opened up my monitors, kind of got things moving. The one thing I have to say I was slightly disappointed by, it said, I think when you put the app on, that the app will walk you through I'm going to say installation, but that seems like the wrong word, the application, how to apply the sensor. And so I kind of assumed that I would turn the app on and then I would swipe through a series of instructions. That didn't happen. And I actually had trouble finding where in the app the instructions were, even though it kept referring to it. So then I looked at the package and I was like, let's do it the good old fashioned way. So there was some paperwork, documentation, if you will, inside the application.
I should probably just interject. This is what comes out of the box. These are the instructions. And you're like, okay.
It's tiny. It's like a little, 1x1, 2x2 square.
Okay, I can do this. This is going to be reasonable. And then Sandy will then show you what that turns into.
It's a map of the world. I don't even know I can't even hold it. And if you're into ASMR, you're welcome. This probably sounds fun. So
that's great. I think I see Middle Earth, Sandy. Yeah. I think Middle Earth is on there. Lord of the Rings. Yeah, getting towards Sauron.
For the West Lovian people, yes.
Yeah. I mean, just fascinating and so I imagine if you've ever opened up a box for anything and you've gotten a little, folded up, taped up instructions, and then you open them up and it's just like the whole world. Usually if you order something from like China, that's like a piece of furniture.
Yeah.
Or like anything in that nature, and you open it up and it just expands beyond your desk. That is what we're seeing here.
Yeah, I didn't know. I immediately felt overwhelmed. I almost quit. And then I went back to the app. I still couldn't find what I needed to find. So then I resorted to YouTube because, again, I wanted to have some semblance of what to do with this before I showed up today. So I watched like 7 different YouTube videos, in part because, so what happens when you open the box is that you have this, I don't know how to explain this thing. It's a round, again, people can't see this because they're listening, but so there's a cap on the bottom. And again, unscrewing things is not my forte. So I tried for a while. I couldn't do it. I debated whether I should get help. Then I thought maybe there was a trick. So that was the reason that I watched 7 YouTube videos, because apparently this is not an important thing for most people. And so they actually don't show you the unscrewing of the cap. Spoiler alert, I did finally get it open by using all of my willpower and might. But so I guess it's now ready to go. And like I said, in that process, I did watch some YouTube videos and there's some good ones on there. Hence why I didn't feel the need to create my own. But I think we're probably ready to go.
Well, I will say that I'm such a guy. When I first opened up my first Stello, I took the kind of C3PO pod that we are seeing here, and I just started pushing it up against my arm as if something would eject from it. I didn't even think about that you had to unscrew anything. It's kind of like the guy that walks into the department store and just doesn't ask anyone for help, just like walks all the aisles to look for the boxers he's trying to find, but would rather spend 15 minutes walking around trying to find them than asking and being efficient. So that was kind of where I headed with my first CGM. But Sandi is being very smart. She's being very detailed. And to unscrew this is the first step to success.
So I feel like a winner. So I'm actually curious about your first experience in terms of where did you put yours? Did you put it in the right spot? Because I'm concerned about that part. Okay, no. Okay,
so
excellent.
I did not. And a full disclosure here, and this, I'm going to state this, and again, this is prior to Sandi doing it for her first time, but I did not pay attention and did not recognize where you put it on your arm mattered for the first time, and actually for subsequent times too as well. But the first time, I will tell you this, I just unscrewed it, I took it to my arm, and just punched it on, didn't think about a thing. I was like, oh, this has got to be how it's done. And truly what happened there is my arm actually bruised up, and I had to actually take it out because I just totally recklessly applied it. And that won't be the case today because Sandi is more than prepared. I was not. You just don't take this thing out, unscrew it, and pop it on. Do not do that. It'll bruise your arm. If you just do it right, everything works.
Well, so the reason I think it bruised your arm is probably because you put it in the muscle. So what I was reading is, and we'll explain this, is that you have to put it in the kind of fleshy part in the back of your arm and actually not hit the muscle. So my guess is that you went full muscle and that's what happened.
Again, on point. Totally right into the muscle. Obviously, I cried and said, not really cried. I cried to Stella and said, oh, this thing doesn't work. And of course, just to get a free one so I could do it again because I needed to I wanted to do this. But again, user error, full disclosure.
So Stella, it's not your fault. Although again, if maybe the directions were a little better, but I actually didn't listen to directions. So there's a few step process and I don't know how it is with your app, but with Levels, you first have to set up the Levels / Stellos application. And then there's, I guess, the manufacturer, which is, let's see, Dexcom. And so then you have to set up a Dexcom account and then link it. It's pretty seamless, but when you go to set up the Dexcom account, it asks if you want to use your phone number or your email as the username. So I just put my phone number because it was less digits. And then I went back and read something and it says you should use your email because apparently it's less glitchy. So I guess if I have an issue, that will be my user error for reading the instructions after I did the thing. And I guess we'll see. So far, it's mostly seems to be set up. After this recording, I then have to go back and actually link the actual sensor back to the app, but I'm going to probably do that offline after. So I'm talking a lot because I'm nervous. I think I'm delaying this, but let's just do this thing. So first I have to move all of my hair away. So I'm going to put it on my left arm, I guess. Can I reach it? Yeah. So again, what we're describing is if you can't see this in video, it's if you raise your arm, you put it in kind of the back fleshy area. Now, I don't have any muscle, so probably I wouldn't be at risk of bruising anyway. I mostly only have a little bit of fleshy stuff, even though I have scrawny little arms. But let's see. So I'm going to unscrew the cap that I have already loosened. So
I'm unscrewing.
And then there's also, so when you push it up to your arm, I guess there's a button. Oh my God, I can see the needle. Jeez.
So I wish I
didn't see that.
I will say this. You don't need to look at the needle. It's almost like
I saw it. And with my glasses, oh my God, I wish I didn't see that. Okay.
All you gotta do is put it up against your arm and then press that button and it shoots it right into your arms and it's like it never happened.
I feel like I'm going to throw up. Okay. It's just, I saw the needle.
And if you do, take some time,
okay.
go on mute.
I'm not really, as a kid, I was deathly afraid of needles because when I was 5, I had a tetanus shot and it hurt. And then, so for the next, 10 years, every time they would make me sit down for blood work, if they would leave the room, so would I. Mom would have to come looking for me in the parking lot. And then, when I started having a bunch of surgeries and all kinds of things, then I just got used to it. So I'm, maybe it's 5-year-old me that's seeing the needle and freaking out. I don't know. But let's let's find this little fleshy part on my arm and let's see what
so
happens.
we are raising our arms. I want to make sure I'm using the right one. Let me just see here. Okay, yeah, this wasn't the one I used the other day.
God, I'm so nervous. I'm being such a whip. Who am I?
And where are we going? Right here, right in the fatty part, right?
Yeah, but also it's supposed to be like relatively high. So yeah, I think we're similar.
Yeah, she rolled my sleeve a little bit. I feel like I'm...
All right, I'm going in. I just got to do this.
All right.
I'm having trouble squeezing.
I might have to do this in front of a mirror. I'm very into the placement of this. Let's see.
Is it on?
There you go.
Okay, so I didn't feel anything. I felt no needle anything.
Sandy, does this look right?
I think so. Just do it. Push. You got to push the whole thing up against your arm hard and then push the button. You're stronger than me. This shouldn't.
It's literally.
I feel it. It feels a little stingy for a second. I did not feel the needle go in. So this is way better than getting your ears pierced.
This is not wanting to work. How about this? I might have a malfunctioning.
So you got to like push the whole thing. Did you get it on? Okay. We are CGM twins. Welcome to the Health Hunt CGM experiment.
I had to run to the bathroom to do it in front of the mirror because whatever I was doing was not working until, as Sandy mentioned, I pressed harder and then it did release. Not sure why that was all happening, but we're on, and I'm going to go now to my app so that it can Bluetooth sync and start to take initial readings. And keep in mind, for everyone that's going to be doing this, the initial readings will be artificially high or inaccurate.
Okay, so we both have ours on. The needle did not hurt. I feel a little bit of something, like I can tell there's something there. So I'm hoping that goes away. Dan said that it will, but I guess I will report back and let you know if that is my experience as the princess and the pea. And so far, so good, except that I need to connect it now to my app. And full disclosure, it's a little bit complicated. I just thought something would pop up and say, what's the number of your sensor? That's not happening. So I'm not going to mess around with it on this episode, but I am having a little bit of frustration, which hopefully when I sit and watch a YouTube video, I will figure out.
It seems as if like Levels has another layer on top of it with Stello. I'm not looking at what Sandy's looking, but with the Stello native app that I'm using, once you administer the CGM onto your arm and you have the app, you type in a 4-digit code and then it starts to sync right away directly with the Stello native app, which I will tell you the UX UI from these apps is not as superior as what Sandy's going to experience from what I've heard. But again, it takes about 25 minutes after the CGM is on your arm, your app is working for the Stello native app, 25 minutes to warm up, and then the first reading will be produced.
Interesting. Well, if I can ever get mine connected, then that's something I have to look forward to.
You'll get there.
So, okay. Well, anyway. All right. So we want to kind of share with you our plan for how we want to use these and the way that we want to experiment. I mean, this is really, again, I'm a perfectionist, so this is something I have to keep top of mind. This has got to be curiosity over perfection, or I'm going to drive myself insane. And same thing, ideally not policing food. You know, I have identified numerous food sensitivities over the years, and that has kind of become an identity. It's ruined my life a little bit. It actually, I think, probably causes more health stress because I'm afraid I'm going to eat the wrong thing. So again, I'm going to try not to fall down that rabbit hole with this. We're mostly just looking for patterns and information about how food, sleep, like Dan said, movement, how all of that affects our glucose, you know, and just like really just checking how lifestyle affects responses.
I said this in the glucose episode, Sandy, and I'll say it again, that if this is your first time doing it, or you haven't done it in a really long time, you may want to go, I called it Fat Dan. You may want to check some stuff out. You may want to eat a little poorly, get a burger, get a fry, watch
Pizza,
how these
tacos,
foods,
margaritas.
Watch how these foods change your glucose variability. And you'll appreciate how hard your body is working, pancreas, so on and so forth, to keep your glucose level and keep everything working as the way it should be at a baseline. And so I would just recommend trying different things that aren't good knowingly to understand better how your body reacts to those things.
Well, I love that hall pass. So I will be going and getting a pizza with a side of tacos very soon.
By the way, what is on your pizza, Sandy? I had never asked you your choice of toppings.
So I actually like a mostly naked pizza. Like I don't like a whole bunch of vegetables on it. I think the texture with cheese is weird. So I just like as something that's like, this is a me thing, cheese on cheese, right? So I like ricotta. I like extra types of cheeses, and black olives is like the thing that I like to put on them. So yeah.
Are you going to ask me?
Yes. What is your, sorry, this is all about me.
Well, Earth ask. I like everything. And then this is the part that's this is not prepared for 2 hours.
Wait, please don't say Hawaiian. And no offense to anyone who likes Hawaiian. I just think pineapple with cheese is gross.
Okay, so I won't eat pineapple. That's not happening.
Okay.
There's no fruit on my pizza.
Okay, thank God. Okay.
The one thing that's never on it, and this is a whole different conversation for a whole different period, for a different time, is black olives. That is a non-starter. And so there we go.
All right. Well, Dan and I are not sharing pizza, so that's yes. Fine.
Or we have to do a half and half.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but I got to be careful. No black olives get on your side. So yeah. Okay. I'll monitor that closely. Okay. So I wanted to mention one other thing. So with my app, we're going to do, because this is the best way to test things, somewhat of controlled experiment. So the Levels app has where you can put in, and I'm assuming it tracks the time that you do it as well, so that you can then look back and see if there's spikes or dips or flat lines and things like that. You can put in foods and things that you're eating, and as well as exercise. So you can actually track what looks like all of the variables. And even before I set up the sensor, I can see that my sleep is being pulled into it. So it's tracking my sleep. So it already has a lot of the things that my Apple Watch is tracking. It will have that information. So it'll be able to kind of tie it all together. So that will be really interesting. So I don't know if you can do that on your app, Dan, or if you have plans on how you want to track things.
Right. So that's super exciting to hear all those things that you get to do and all the functionality with Levels. Stello is basic. So for instance, let's just say I had that pizza with no olives. And I watched my glucose spike above 140, which would probably be the case with that type of food. I could put a note in on that pinpoint of what I ate that caused that glucose variability. But a lot of this is is a little bit manual in the sense that, when I wake up in the morning and my glucose is reading 102 on the CGM, well, guess what? That matches with the biomarker of the fasting glucose I took from Quest. So that makes sense. But if the CGM registers 90 or 130, God forbid, now we're having discrepancy in lab testing versus continuous glucose monitoring. And so always, in my opinion, always defer to the lab test. But it's just good to see the behavior, but it's a little bit more manual because there's a lack of features on Stello.
Okay. Speaking of lab work, I have not been a good girl and I have not gotten lab work yet. So that's something I should do, because I understand that it's important to understand those numbers and correlate it back to what I'm getting from this app. So that's on the list. Okay. So we wanted to share with you some of sort of the experiments that we're going to try, just in case you want to try any of these, if you're going to CGM along with us, and we'll give you kind of an idea of how we're thinking about this. So the first one is that we talked about, or Dan talked about, one of the things that is supposed to help your glucose levels is if you go for a walk after you eat. And so we're not going to go into all the science behind that, but this is a very well-documented thing, to my chagrin, because after I eat, I am a full-on sloth. And this might be an issue of how my body is processing food. But so the last thing I want to do is get off my couch after I eat. And so I'm going to try this. So let's say, for example, on day one, I'm going to eat. I'm going to sit my ass on my couch and enjoy my life. The second day, I'm going to eat, and then I'm going to get off my ass and I'm going to go for a walk. And so I'll be able to compare those two things. And then the third thing I want to try, and I didn't do any research on this, but I know there might be some benefit, is that I'm going to eat, get off my ass, and go and stand on my vibration plate for some duration of time to see if it's stimulating the muscles. Because I know that I've heard you could do, like, let's say calf raises or other sort of things that involve movement, not necessarily a walk. But so I am really just kind of curious to see, what the numbers say about all of this.
Sandi, you can also do a reverse process here where you can wake up in the morning. What time do you wake up usually?
I don't want to tell people that.
Okay.
No, I'm not a morning person. I mean, I'm not a morning person. I try to get up by 7.
Well, seven's great. So let's say at 7, maybe like around 8 a.m., don't have eaten any food and see what the reading is, because that will be your fasting glucose versus on the CGM. And then you could know that without any food, and you could measure that against the fasting glucose blood test you would take forthcoming.
Okay, that's useful, but also not a problem because I have never in my life, and you can ask my mom because she's trying to force me to eat those carnation breakfast drinks. I have never been a morning or even an early afternoon food person. I
Okay.
typically don't eat until noon, maybe 2:00. So that is my baseline. So that will be a non-issue.
Got it. And then to add to the, you mentioned the calf raises, the walking. A really good thing if you're working at an office, or if you can't, if it's raining out, are the air squats. Really, really good. Air squat, 10 air squats.
Okay, sounds fun. Love an air squat. Part of me hopes that it says that a walk doesn't do anything and then I can just continue to sit on my ass, but I have a feeling that's not going to be the result. So hopefully seeing this in real time on a chart will actually help me create a new habit and change my behavior in a positive way. So that's,
You're
one of the goals.
People in the neighborhood.
I don't want to have to talk to people. That's a whole other thing. That's just, we just got to walk around the block and come back. All right. So the second experiment is playing around with the order in which you eat things. So for example, protein, veggies, carbs, right? And how does that order affect your glucose? So day one could be carbs first, like bread, rice, pasta, which I don't eat a lot of carbs except for fruit, but whatever. I guess I could throw a piece of real bread in there instead of my almond flour bread. And then another day would be, rather than carbs first, veggies, protein, carbs. And then whatever the last combination of that is, protein, carbs, veggies. So I think that this will be an interesting one. And I don't know, Dan, if you've had any experience with this, but I've heard that there is some correlation between that mattering.
To the point, I would probably add, and I've mentioned this in the glucose episode, I tested white rice and brown rice.
Oh, yes.
And white rice spiked my glucose, brown rice did not. And then this is more expected, is that I had Greek yogurt with blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, and obviously those are sugars, but as you know, if you know about sugars, those also have fiber in them, and those did not spike my glucose. So that actually, as you would expect, that actually worked out and is proven by the numbers.
Yeah. And so just on the sort of topic of food, like I plan to experiment with isolating different foods, right? I know with fruit, there's different glycemic index fruits. Some of them are sweeter, some of them aren't. So I really plan to try and isolate foods and then pay attention to what they're doing, because I think that's the best way to
Super smart
to figure it out. Yeah.
Yep.
So another one, and we talked about this again in the episode on glucose, is the impact of sleep. Basically, it's comparing a good night's sleep to a bad night's sleep. And so we're going to utilize our watches and the data that the watches show us in terms of how many hours of different types of sleep that we're getting, eat the same breakfast both days so that that's not changing the information. Although I guess before you eat breakfast, you can check your levels throughout the day. And so this will just be an interesting experiment. So probably some days, well, I've actually been not doing great about going to bed by 10 o'clock, even though we discussed the importance of that and all the good stuff that happens. But I think making sure that I'm trying a variable amount of different times. So maybe one day I go to bed at 10, one day I go to bed at midnight, one day I go wild and go to bed at 2. See what happens. So another experiment, and I think this was a little bit more difficult to control, but obviously stuff happens. So this is going to be stress versus calm, right? So again, we have to somewhat keep certain variables similar. For me, that's not super difficult because I pretty much just eat like eggs and avocado every day. And so I could do that for a week and just have different things change. So I'm not going to create stress for myself, but obviously stress happens naturally. So if there's a way that I can notate it in the app, like a day was higher stress or something, I'm going to do that. And that way I can kind of look for differences. So stressful conversation, maybe there was terrible traffic, I have an extra deadline on a given day, and just kind of see how that elevates glucose.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, that'll be fun. So I guess maybe one day you'll just call me and say something that's stressful and not tell me you're joking, and see if that has any impact. I'll ask my mom to call me. Hi, Mom. Something like that, Okay. So another experiment we're thinking about is healthy foods that surprise you. So these are the ones that you're like, for sure, I'm doing great things. I'm making that smoothie. I'm eating the oat bowl, the granola bar, sushi, some healthy juice. But that could have an impact, a negative impact on your glucose. And so it'll be interesting to kind of discover the hidden pitfalls of certain things that we think are healthy. And this is where it gets a little bit stressful, is like all the things I think I'm doing that I'm all proud of myself for and that are awesome could spike my glucose. And so that will be a little bit deflating, but also I should know about it.
So again, I think I mentioned earlier just before about the white and brown rice, a little bit applies mainly to what we're talking about right here with foods that and how they react as isolated. And then I talked about the Greek yogurt with the fruit as being a surprise. Well, not as a surprise, but as expected, but comforting to know that that's a great dessert choice for me based on my glucose, my body.
Interesting. Yeah. So another thing that I want to test is in the morning have a matcha. And so I'm going to experiment over the course, let's say, of a week with different sweeteners. So I don't use regular sugar. That's a hard no for me. But I'll use stevia, which is supposed to sort of have no effect. I sometimes will use honey. I sometimes will use maple syrup. Those are potentially higher glycemic products. And I also use coconut sugar, which is significantly lower in sugars than regular sugar. So I'm going to test all of those and see what the effect is, because obviously if one is significantly higher, causing higher spikes, and another one, it may be delicious, but I have to cut it out. So I think that will be interesting. And the other thing is too, I know you're supposed to eat before you have any kind of caffeine and have some protein. Again, I said, I can't put food in my mouth in the morning. That's horrible to me. I can't do it. So I put collagen powder, which has protein, in my matcha. I don't know if that does anything. So I guess I will test one day the matcha without the collagen powder, one day with it. And then one day I'm going to have to force myself to eat an egg before the matcha and, see if that's really something. Because I worry about it, but it's gross to me. And so I haven't pulled the trigger. So this will be data that I would like to have for myself.
Sandi, do you cook your eggs? Now I'm picturing you putting an egg yolk in a glass and you downing it. Do you actually make scrambled eggs, or what's the deal?
You picture me swallowing a whole egg? Have you met me?
I don't know.
I can barely swallow a pill.
I mean, if you can take staples out of your leg, I think you can swallow a whole egg. Yeah. So.
No, I'm an egg expert. Since I was a kid, this has been like a food that I've eaten my whole life that I just loved. We had chickens. I used to go gather eggs from the chickens. I have a whole scary chicken story of being 2 years old. And we had some mean chickens at one point that looked like owls, and they jumped on my head and pecked at me, and someone had to save me. But I still love eggs. So I typically I have these little frying pans, like little individual size ones. And so I make those and I eat them with avocado and arugula and like my almond flour fake toast. And then, but also I do really love a soft boiled egg. And so I've gotten really good at the timing of boiling eggs and having them be soft. It's a whole process. You got to put them in ice after you take them out of the boiling water so that they don't continue to cook. So I put that on certain things. Once in a while, I'll have a scrambled egg or some kind of omelet, but those are kind of my two go-tos.
So full disclosure, I am the worst cook ever. I just can't do anything in the kitchen. I will say this, though. COVID hit 2020, and everyone acquired a talent or two during COVID. Some people learned to play the guitar. Some people learned another language. I learned how to make eggs and up my breakfast game. I am Michelin star eggs with omelets, like soft scramble, hard scramble, over easy. I can kill the game on these things. I don't know. I mean, maybe there is something for me to cook in like at one of the delis in Boca for making omelets in the morning for the crowds. But my egg game is really good.
Okay, we'll start an egg stand, because that's like, I'm an all day breakfast kind of person. Like if I didn't have eggs at 2:00 and I'm hungry at 6, I'll have my eggs then. I don't discriminate time with eggs.
Love that.
And yeah,
we couldn't. So she likes black olives. I don't. But regarding the egg thing, during the day, we are totally aligned there.
Well, I might put them in an omelet. So if we're sharing an omelet, then I shall not do that. We don't. I'm assuming that that's also a hard no for you.
Yeah.
Well, interesting. Right. Okay, maybe not. Okay. All right. So the next experiment is going to be related to eating, but the time of day. And so, we talked about in the sleep episode how food can affect sleep for different reasons. And I think we talked about in glucose, how your glucose can spike at different times during the day. So just the experiment will be eating a certain thing, let's say at 3 different times of the day on different days, and just see what that does. So afternoon or, like a late 10 p.m., going wild, having a snack, that kind of thing, and just kind of see what happens. Okay, so the last experiment, and, these experiments will change over time as maybe people make suggestions or things like that, or we learn more information. But just in terms of what we're kind of thinking at the outset, So I'm curious because I had heard about a supplement called berberine. And I think Dan has mentioned it before. I had been seeing it on social media. It's not a magic supplement, but people do report having a smoother glucose response after meals. So instead of guessing, I'm going to let the CGM show me whether that's true or not. It's basically just a plant compound that's used to support blood sugar regulation and insulin sensitivity. So I had already ordered some from Fullscript before I had decided to do this. So I have it in my box of supplements. So I got to figure, I think you take it before meals. I'm not sure. I got to read the instructions. So I do it correctly. And let's see if it does anything. Because people have reported like smaller spikes in glucose, faster return to baseline, and then less glucose variability. So I guess it'll be interesting to see. I'll report back.
So glucose monitor on. Reading starting at 134. I'm not sure if that is settling in or it's really early on, but it took about 25 minutes and now it's registering. So, and it's also, we're recording this in the afternoon. So it's not, your readings will be a little bit higher, but my expectations here to kind of confirm what has been in the past and see how I can improve on these things and just kind of gamify again. Just, your body changes, you get older. And so you want to keep, checking in with these things and seeing what's going on. So I'll do many of the things Sandi discussed prior. I'll do some other stuff, but I'm just kind of verifying and gamifying and then not getting too crazy about all of this information, but it's a very good guide for me for behaviors in the future.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. So when we get off this recording, I'm going to try and connect mine. I'll be very disappointed if that doesn't work, but I'm assuming that there is some fix to a problem that I'm having. But I'm excited. And I think one of the things for me is that important, I have to not judge myself. Because again, with some of the chronic conditions that I can tie to mind-body issues and nervous system dysregulation, that is the last thing I need. So I just have to kind of wear all of this in a very loose way and not get hypersensitive about the data and being obsessive about it. And I do want to just connect the dots between how I feel and what my body is doing behind the scenes. So I'm pretty excited. I put it on, didn't cry. I don't think I yelled. I didn't feel anything. I do feel a little bit now. I don't know how to explain it. But I know it's there. But again, nothing's very light anything. And so, pretty painless. One other thing we just wanted to remind everybody, because we didn't do it before, the Health Hunt podcast is for informational entertainment purposes only. We're absolutely not medical professionals, and nothing shared should be considered medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider before making changes to your health. And just a quick note, CGMs can be really informative, but they are actually not appropriate for everyone. So if you've got a history of disordered eating, anxiety around numbers, or medical conditions that make this feel activating, it might not be the right tool for you. So just, do your research and decide if it's a healthy choice. And remember, CGMs are just data. Interpretation matters, and it can be very useful experience to take the data or maybe share it with your medical professional, especially if you're seeing numbers that are higher than what is considered healthy. This is very useful information for medical providers. So certainly worth talking to them if you feel like you should.
Couldn't agree more.
All right. So the CGMs are officially on. I survived. Nothing dramatic happened. I'm feeling pretty good about my efforts. But what did happen, I feel curious and kind of empowered. I just opened a window in my body I never really had before. In future episodes, and maybe even on social media, like I mentioned, we're going to share what we're noticing, what we've learned from the data, the surprises, the oh wow moments, and the experiments that totally flop, including the things that don't move the needle at all for us. And remember, everybody's different. We hope that sharing our experiences and our experiments in the way that we do is helpful and interesting. We're just two regular people, although I have been accused of being an alien, but that's a whole other thing. And we're trying to understand and improve our own health, like all of you out there. So we figured we should bring you along for the journey because after all, health is a group sport and you are not alone. And if you've worn a CGM or if you're thinking about it, we'd love to hear your experience. Please follow, rate, and review the show because it helps other people find us. And you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at the healthhunt_podcast. And you can send us a message there. Tell us what shocked you, what helped, and what confused you. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind to your body, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Health Hunt.